In 1973, a man in Alabama was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. His doctor gave him a few months to live. He believed it. He deteriorated, and a few weeks later, he was dead. But here's the thing that will haunt you. When the autopsy was performed, the tumor was tiny, far too small to have killed him. His organs were functioning. His body had no medical reason to shut down. He died because he believed he would. Not from cancer, not from organ failure, from something far more terrifying, a force that lives inside every single one of us, right now, listening to every thought you have, ready to obey. Today, we go inside the darkest power of the human mind. The nocebo effect. Let me tell you about a man. We'll call him Mr. A. He was 26 years old. Young, healthy, no prior medical history. He had just gone through a devastating breakup, and in a moment of profound despair, he swallowed 29 capsules from a bottle he found in his medicine cabinet. He thought they were antidepressants. He wanted to end everything. When he arrived at the emergency room, he was shaking uncontrollably. His blood pressure had plummeted. His heart was racing. Doctors rushed to stabilize him. They ran test after test, expecting organ damage, tox screens, internal bleeding. But every single result came back normal. The capsules were sugar pills. He was part of a clinical drug trial. He had taken the placebo. There was no active chemical in his body, not one molecule capable of causing harm. And yet his body was shutting down, because he believed, with absolute certainty, that it was poisoned. His conviction alone had triggered a cascade of physiological collapse so real, so measurable, that doctors couldn't initially distinguish it from an actual overdose. This is not a metaphor. This is not folklore. This is a documented medical case published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine. The man recovered only after a doctor, in a breach of the trial's protocol, told him the truth. The moment his belief changed, his body began to recover. Think about what that means for a second. His body manufactured a medical emergency out of nothing but expectation. That is the nocebo effect, the placebo's sinister twin, and once you understand it, you will never look at your own thoughts the same way again. So what is actually happening inside your skull when belief starts to kill you? Most people have heard of the placebo effect, the idea that a sugar pill can heal you if you believe it will. It's real, it's measurable, and it's been documented thousands of times. But its dark mirror, the nocebo effect, works with equal and sometimes greater power in the opposite direction. When you expect harm, your brain begins manufacturing it. Here's the neuroscience. Your brain runs on prediction. At every single moment, it is not passively observing reality, it is actively constructing it, building a model of what is about to happen based on what it believes. When that model includes pain, danger, or illness, the brain doesn't wait. It starts preparing your body right now. The key villain in this story is a molecule called cholecystokinin, or CCK. When you anticipate pain or threat, your brain releases CCK in the spinal cord and limbic system. CCK actively blocks your natural pain-killing system. It suppresses your endorphins and your endocannabinoid receptors. In plain terms, it turns off your body's built-in morphine. The moment you expect to suffer, your brain chemically ensures you will. Simultaneously, the hypothalamus signals your adrenal glands to flood your bloodstream with cortisol, the primary stress hormone. Cortisol, when sustained, suppresses immune function, raises blood pressure, disrupts sleep, impairs digestion, and accelerates inflammation. Chronic nocebo-style thinking is, in a very real biochemical sense, slowly poisoning yourself from the inside. And then there's the contrast. When placebo works, dopamine and endogenous opioids surge through your reward circuitry. When nocebo strikes, those same pathways go dark, replaced by cortisol, CCK, and adrenaline. You shift from a neurochemistry of healing to a neurochemistry of crisis, based entirely on what you believe is true. A landmark study from the University of Turin measured this in clinical pain patients. Subjects who were warned that a procedure would be painful reported significantly higher pain scores and showed measurably higher cortisol levels, even when the procedure was identical to a group told to expect mild discomfort. The warning itself had rewired their experience of reality. Your brain is not a passive recorder of your life. It is an active author, and sometimes it writes horror. To understand why your mind can do this to you, we need to go back, way back, 200,000 years, to a time when your ancestors woke up every morning not knowing if today was the day something ate them. The human brain evolved under conditions of constant, lethal threat. Predators, rival tribes, starvation, disease. In this environment, there was one cognitive mistake that was always more costly than the other. Imagine two of your ancient ancestors walking through a dark forest. One hears a sound in the bushes and assumes it's a predator. He freezes, heart pounding, flooded with cortisol. But it was just the wind. He wasted energy on a false alarm. The other ancestor hears the same sound, assumes it's safe, and keeps walking. He gets eaten by a lion. Evolution has a ruthless accounting system. The cost of a false negative, ignoring a real threat, is death. The cost of a false positive, fearing something harmless, is just stress. So, over hundreds of thousands of years, natural selection built into us a catastrophic negativity bias. A machine that always assumes the worst. Psychologists call this the negativity bias, and it is not a flaw. It was the single most important feature your ancestors had. It kept them alive long enough to pass their genes forward. The problem is that this ancient survival algorithm is now running inside a creature that lives in cities, works desk jobs, and reads news headlines on a glowing rectangle at 11 p.m. Your brain cannot distinguish between a lion in the grass and a WebMD article about rare diseases, between a tribal warning of danger and a social media post about something catastrophic happening on the other side of the planet. Every piece of threatening information, real or imagined, ancient or digital, triggers the same ancient cascade. CCK floods your spine. Cortisol enters your blood. Your immune system begins to suppress. The mechanism that once kept your ancestors alive is now pointing inward. The predator has changed. It now lives inside your skull. And it has learned to speak in your own voice. This isn't ancient history. The nocebo effect is happening right now on a mass scale across the modern world. And once you know what to look for, you'll see it everywhere. In the 2000s, communities near wind turbines in Australia and New Zealand began reporting a strange cluster of symptoms: headaches, nausea, dizziness, sleep disruption, heart palpitations. This came to be called wind turbine syndrome. Governments funded studies. Scientists investigated extensively. The findings? The low-frequency sound from wind turbines is not physically capable of producing these symptoms. But here's the detail that makes your skin crawl. Residents who lived near wind turbines but had never been told they might be harmful reported no unusual symptoms at all. The symptoms only appeared in communities that had been warned to expect them. The warning created the illness. Then there is what researchers now call cyberchondria, a term you may recognize from your own late-night phone habits. You feel a slight ache in your chest. You Google it. 10 minutes later, you are convinced you have 3 rare conditions and a blood clot. Your heart rate is up, you feel tightness in your throat, and a vague dizziness that wasn't there before. These symptoms are nocebo responses to information, real, physical, measurable, and created entirely by what you just read. Social media anxiety follows the same pathway. Multiple studies now show that adolescents who are told in advance that social media will damage their mental health report significantly worse mental health outcomes than those who are not given that framing, even with identical usage. The expectation of harm becomes the harm. And perhaps the most unsettling example of all, mass psychogenic illness. In 2006, a school in Shelbyville, Tennessee, experienced an outbreak of mysterious symptoms, nausea, dizziness, headache, that spread from student to student. No toxin was ever found. No bacteria, no virus, no chemical exposure. What spread through that building was not a pathogen. It was a belief, a shared expectation of illness, transmitted socially, that triggered real physiological responses in dozens of real human bodies. Illness that existed nowhere except in collective expectation. Spread through eye contact, through fear, through the simple terrible power of shared belief. We are not as rational as we think. We are not in as much control as we believe. And that uncomfortable truth is the beginning of something important. Here is the question that should keep you up at night, in the best possible way. If belief can create illness, if expectation can manufacture pain out of nothing, if a thought can chemically suppress your immune system, then what is reality? Where does the outside world end and your mind begin? The philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that we never experience the world directly, only our representation of it. Your brain is not a window to reality. It is a model of reality built from assumptions, expectations, memories, and emotions. What you believe about the world literally shapes the world you inhabit. Physically, measurably, not as metaphor but as biochemistry. The nocebo effect is proof that you are not just a passenger in your own life. You are co-creating every experience you have. Your body is listening to every story you tell yourself about who you are, how the world works, and what is about to happen. And it is responding accordingly. This is both terrifying and profoundly liberating. Because if belief has this power, the power to kill, the power to heal, the power to manufacture entire physiological realities, then what you choose to believe about your life, your health, your future, matters more than almost anything else. The mind-body connection is not a wellness platitude. It is neuroscience. And the boundary between thought and flesh is far thinner than any of us are comfortable admitting. So let's return to that man in Alabama. The one who died from a tumor too small to kill him. He didn't die from cancer. He died from certainty, from the unshakable belief that the story was already over. And Mr. A, the young man whose body staged a medical emergency from sugar pills, he recovered the moment his belief changed. His body had been waiting for a different instruction. Your brain is doing this right now, running its predictions, modeling what tomorrow will feel like based on what you believe today, bathing your cells in chemistry that reflects your expectations. The question is not whether your beliefs are shaping your biology. They are. The question is whether you're conscious enough to notice which beliefs you're feeding. Because if your mind can be your worst enemy, it can also be your most powerful ally. That story, the other side of this, is one we need to tell. And we will. If this changed how you think, the algorithm needs to see it. Subscribe, because the next video goes even deeper into something that may genuinely change how you live. We're just getting started.